if you create a comp plan that rewards the focus on not just personal success, but on helping bring up the people behind them. What if we could give people, you already hear I'm an ROI kind of guy, right? So, we're talking about it like, what if we could tell people their baby ROI?
A really cool baby saving calculator on the website. So people can figure out by switching to ProLife Payments how many babies they can save.
Hello, and welcome to Liberty Spenders Podcast. We are Kurt and Kristen Luidhardt, your hosts, the co-founders of the Prosper Group, an agency that's raised over $500 million and elected over 100 members of Congress, 14 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. And now, in addition to helping political candidates get elected, we're helping your business get elected by answering this question: what if you could exponentially grow your business by tapping into an engaged and lucrative audience we call Liberty Spenders? Liberty Spenders are politically conservative or faith-based consumers, and they're looking to buy from businesses and brands that align with their values.
Our guest today is Arturo Del Rio. He is the Chief Mission Outreach Officer at ProLife Payments. But before that, he led go-to-market efforts at major firms like IBM, SunGard, Availability Services, and owned and operated a variety of tech companies, and most recently, ProLife Payments. Arturo's in the process of being ordained in 2025 with the intention of going into ministry full-time by 2027, which Arturo, I thought was kind of an interesting sort of pivot from business to ministry. So I think this is going to be a fun conversation.
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. So tell to me about that journey from big, gigantic companies like IBM launching to helping launch ProLife Payments, which is a very mission-oriented business, and then to, getting into the full-time ministry. How that evolution?
It's been an interesting ride, and everybody talks about this plan they had, and I sat down one day and I wrote it all up, and then there was these 12 steps, and then I asked them how it really went down. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. I hear you're planning in retrospect, but in truth, I grew up with an interesting family. My family are business people or artists, which is weird. All right, we have painters, we have unbelievably talented musicians. My grandfather, who was actually a biblical scholar and history teacher too, but he was an all-state tenor for the state of New Jersey when he was 16. Could sing his, oh my goodness, it was powerful just sitting next to him with his operatic voice. And then the other half of my family were all business folks, so it was weird. I kind of did both. So I opened up my first legit little business when I was 14, and I started playing and singing, and it turned into a pretty nifty little business. I ended up owning a bunch of bands, and this is all before I was out of high school. A bunch of bands. I was subcontracting limos and catering and party rentals, and I don't know, I had a little knack for it. I always hated managers because they would take my money, so I would do the business side and then go entertain. It was pretty cool. So then I got into wine distributorship before I could drink, which was really interesting, getting pulled over by police and having open containers in your car and a license to do so. Those were fun. But, I decided one day I had a bad car accident and I was pretty roughed up, and I didn't understand scale. My family's really small business owners and, kind of are the business. And I didn't understand scaling, yourself out of the job instead of just being in the job all the time. And because of the car accident, it really affected my businesses very negatively. And I decided while I was laid up, having a bit of a pity party, but I thought to myself, I was reading about software, and at the time I didn't know what send as was. I didn't know how to send an email. And that's true. By the way, that was true all the way up until 2010. And I'm not exaggerating. I literally didn't know what that was. But I decided, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Someone's going to hire me to get into software. I'm going to learn software. And the idea of making something once and selling it and selling it and selling it and selling it, I didn't know anything about software, but I understood margins. So I was like, hey, we're going to get good at this. So I decided to go out and get someone to hire
That
me.
just sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
It was awesome. It was a cool journey. I no one would hire me because I had no background in technology and legitimately couldn't send an email. So I started putting on suits, showing up places, and just hanging out until somebody would hire me. And then finally, a gentleman who just got tired of seeing my face every day because I kept showing up, and basically he asked me if I would leave if I would, do an interview, and I told him I probably wasn't gonna leave because he was gonna hire me and I was starting Monday. And the guy was like, dude, just come on. So and he did, and he hired me, and I bothered him for about 3, 4 weeks before he gave me an interview. And I ended up learning a lot from that company. Probably the best lessons in what not to do, but lessons nonetheless. And then ultimately, pretty quickly got into a company that ultimately I helped grow their Latin America division, built the entire thing from scratch. We exited to IBM, hung out for a little bit, and then I really ended up my whole intent was to open up my own businesses. So I opened up some tech companies, app development company, some AI businesses, pretty cool stuff. We actually presented on behalf of AWS at reInvent a few years back. I was a consultant to the Minister of Cybersecurity and Drones in Saudi Arabia, and it was just a cool ride. Opened up another one, and I came across a really special place, an organization called Millennium Bible Institute. Has nothing to do with the millennium. It's because they were founded around 2000. But they, a lot of a lot of this stuff growing up where I grew up kind of half Catholic, half Baptist. But it was either, hey, I don't have an answer, or don't ask, neither of which were satisfactory to me. And I'm a little, kind of an inquisitive guy. And anyway, they ultimately, a lot of the answers I wanted, I got. And I decided, I love business. I love what I'm doing here at ProLife Payments. I'll talk about that in a second. But ultimately, I would like to take my kind of, I hate to say it this way, but go to market, skills and sales skills and marketing skills, and go sell for the Lord. What could be a better sale than that? You want to talk about the best deal on earth? Buy into my stuff, you get eternal life. You know what I mean? That's the deal. That's the deal of the century. So, but yeah, it's been cool. And then it's been great. And then I decided to exit my last company. I had known Jared, the founder of ProLife Payments, beforehand. We had kind of my AI lead tech was generating leads in exchange for commissions and stuff. And I don't know. I was like, on the way of going to sell for the Lord, I don't think Jesus is going to be mad about me, helping moms to save babies on the way out of, corporate. That's what I did. So that's how I ended up at Pro Life Payments, and I'm going into ministry.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing the journeys. And we had Steve Green on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we asked him about this. He says, you just kind of got to go about doing your business knowing that you really have no clue where God's going to lead you. They had no idea they were going to do a museum of the Bible. They had no idea where God was going to lead them. And then there they end up. And so it's powerful. I'm excited to see what he has in store. Talk a little bit about ProLife Payments. What about that made it such an interesting step from going into from leaving your current business?
Pro Life Payments, it really is a mission. And I hear a lot of companies talk about a mission. You know what I mean? And then they jack up prices 30% and give away 10. You know what I mean? And slap a Jesus sticker on something mediocre and kind of browbeat people into it. That's not what this is, or even close. And forgive my directness, but it's just me. Kurt mentioned earlier, we both suffer from directness. But one of the things I loved about this was, there's so many services that we need each and every day as business owners, and we're too busy to take the time to really research certain things. When you're looking for the product, you don't think to yourself, hey, I'm working with the adversary. You don't. You look at products, the features, the pricing, and you move on. And it was, in fact, one of the things that was abrupt to me when I met him, and I started thinking about coming over right at the time I met him. Um, I didn't know that a lot of these big box, payment processors, and even in the nonprofit space, the donor management platforms, they're not just like woke, right? Some of them, they're actively sending money to people like Planned Parenthood, or, raising money for children's drag queen shows, things that if you're, a Christian and a conservative and a freedom loving American, probably not the place you want to go give your money to, you know? Um, and for us, it was this really cool way of bringing better technology, a better solution that allows you to eliminate your credit card fees permanently as a merchant or nonprofit. And on top of the fact that we have better tech, oh, by the way, we align with your values. For me, I think sometimes they do it the other way around. It's like, hey, my values align. I know my solution's expensive and it kind of stinks, but buy from me anyway. Well, no, I'm a professional, I'm a business person. And listen, as at least me, Team Jesus folks here, shouldn't we strive for excellence, not mediocrity? Wouldn't that be a novel idea? So that's what we did, and it's been a cool transition. And we have some great solutions, not just the standard processing. We have this absolutely fire product for people using QuickBooks Online that integrates without changing QuickBooks at all. That eliminates those. They say it's 2.9, but do the math on it, it's like 3.4. That fee overnight, it goes away. And then you can pass it on compliantly to your buyer, but offer ACH for free with no changes to your workflow. And it's standalone. We've had accountants using it. And then we have a really just a ridiculous, essentially, it's a smart automation CRM for nonprofits to grow with crazy tech involved. Nobody has anything comparable to that. Frankly, most for profits aren't using something like that.
Well, it's so great to hear and see your passion come through because, of course, we talk about this a lot with our clients and on this podcast, which is just that, you know, don't mistake the alignment of values with an excuse to not deliver absolute excellence and have the same attention to the customer experience and the same level of professionalism how you run your business. You still need to follow all those KPIs. You still need to have staff that's trained, that is aligned in the right jobs. And so all of those things that people that you would coach for the success of business, all those things still apply. And we would argue even more so. I think your product or service needs to be as good, if not better, because oftentimes there's a little bit less convenience. There's maybe some extra hurdles that consumers have to maybe jump through to get to you or to continue to buy. And so your point is spot on. And I so appreciate that.
Well, we love y'all. That was one of the first things talking to Kurt. I'm like, this gentleman is an absolute beast who actually knows what he's doing. Just talking about it, and it was just very attractive because I not to like love on you here, but I'm going to have to. I talk to so many people who genuinely bring weak sauce. They just bring weak sauce to the table and they slap a Jesus sticker on it and come by for me. No, should we really have to have the mentality of being the best, striving for excellence in our businesses? We are supposed to treat our business. You're doing it unto the Lord. It's not my business; it's the Lord's business.
Right.
So you better show up
Right.
with the
Right.
best every day. Doesn't mean you don't boo boo it up. You know what I mean? Sometimes, but man, it certainly shouldn't be due to lack of interest and effort and intent. Um, and I don't know. That's one of the things that I've really loved chatting with you the last couple times about.
Absolutely. I mean, I try to tell people we're still in the business of competing
Mhm.
for our customers' business. We're not charities,
That's right.
right? Yes, we are doing good, but we are not a charity that motivates people solely on the basis of the fact that we're, supporting a pro-life cause. Whether it's ProLife Payments or our friends at 7 Weeks Coffee who make amazing coffee that supports pro-life causes, you still have to make top 1% coffee. And it was another interesting lesson. You know, one of our other guests talked about how he learned that personally was he realized when he featured the quality of his product first and only introduced people to his mission after they bought it, that he sold more because people were buying his product because it was the best. But then afterwards, we're introduced to the idea that he was also supporting post-prison individuals in their transitions into, back into the world. And he said it increases retention.
Mhm.
But people bought it. He sells coffee as well. They buy coffee because he's in the top 1% in the quality. And so that point can't be driven home more, particularly people listening, thinking, how do I grow in this space? You still got to make a killer product. Got to make a great one. Solve some real problems.
That's a great point. We never lead with that. So you notice they talked about the products. I didn't mention that we match and beat pricing and give away 15%. That's like to me the icing. Hey, look, we're great as it is, but now look at all the cool stuff we do too with our money. That's an absolutely great point. And I think a lot of people miss that boat from a marketing perspective too.
Well, I think it also helps expose this idea. I think that many people have, and I know I've probably suffered from at various points in my time where at the same time, we're saying you got to compete, have a good product, regardless of your mission. But we're also saying this, we can also bring our faith into our work environments, right? And I've been guilty of saying, well, church is over here, work is here, and sometimes I draw the metaphor. I've sometimes thought, well, Jesus, God, there, he's the referee, but he's really not calling any. Like I'm doing my own thing, right?
You're calling the plays.
Yeah, I'm calling the plays. I'm the coach. I'm the quarterback. And if I get out of bounds, that's what faith is for. Keep me on the sort of straight and narrow. But I think what you're also talking about is the idea this is an opportunity to kind of not separate faith and work.
Amen. It's I everything you said was me most of my entire life, and I genuinely like it was so compartmentalized. And probably one of the things I remember hearing a lot, which now after really, really understanding and studying what we're supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to see business from a biblical perspective. How about that phrase? It's not personal, just business. All right. Well, that
Right.
depends on what side of
Right.
that fence you're on, if it's personal or not. You know what I mean? And one of the interesting things is,
Yeah.
if you're studying through Romans, very unique thing that we talk about the way we think about and see our business. And everybody kind of has this idea that God doesn't have a business. Well, God is in the business of something, and He has a very specific outcome. And quite literally, we're told how we're supposed to view our business, how we're supposed to treat others through that, and really let the life of Christ come through even in those instances too. And probably the coolest, I can't remember, I think it was MacArthur, but it was a great quote, and it hit me really hard. It said, "You may be the only Bible a non-believer will ever read." And if you think about your opportunities
Wow.
to introduce people to Christ, not through your words, but through your godly behavior and actions as an edified son of God or daughter of God, that difference in behavior can be what gets people to have that inquisition, that quick question, that one thought that maybe changes their direction. People don't want to be sold to, just like they don't want to be preached at. It's the same thing. But when people see, exhibit, and have an experience that's different with you because you starkly stand out from the rest of the crowd, all of a sudden it creates a new and genuine opportunity to soften their heart, and maybe they'll receive a message a different way, or even better yet, as mentioned, they might ask. So I think we forget that our biggest job isn't just to do what we're doing. Business is great, but that is an ultimately spectacular time to put the Lord's grace and goodness on display in a real way in a real world. Anyway, I'm a little passionate about this. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Yeah.
I didn't pick that up, Arturo. I didn't notice.
I'm ready to go all the time. That last two
Well,
espressos didn't hurt either, though. I'll tell you that.
so you like your coffee too, I see. All this talk of coffee. Um, well, I know from you and I have not met before, but I know from our research and from your and Kurt's conversation, you've described you've played a lot of roles in business and sales, operations, learning tech, which I'm dying to ask you questions about that whole journey too, but I won't. I'll save that. But what do you think is the most profitable lesson you've learned from that?
You know, the best lessons I've ever learned from no matter what I've done, if you're constantly focused on the golden rule, and if you can genuinely look at yourself and see what you're doing with a not love without the simulation, right? With the genuine intent for the betterment of somebody else as you're interacting, whether that's an employee, whether that's somebody within your leadership team, whether that's when you have to bring constructive criticism to the table. if you really genuinely, and it's tough because that also means you got to eat it when you boo boo. You know what I mean? You got to drop that ego. But if you genuinely look through that lens and really behave that way in your day to day actions, it really does lead to success long term. You may not win the most, the fastest, but there's folks that will do business with me from when I was playing the guitar and singing when I'm 14. Because they know the nature of how I try to do things. Um, if there's one thing as leaders we need to concern ourselves more with is looking and genuinely understanding from an empathetic standpoint where people are, and no matter what, whether it's a good or bad message, whatever comes out of your mouth, make sure the purpose of that behind it is love and kindness with the intent to create a positive outcome. um, I think that's been my biggest lesson.
Well, and I think people can tell that. They can tell, even if, like you said, I love your expression of you make a boo boo in the process, even if it is executed imperfectly. The hope is that hopefully it's in the moment, but if not in the moment later, that people will sense, right, what that true intent was, and what the ultimate outcome was. Even when you're having a difficult conversation, which, as we all know in business, happens all the time. If it's not with employees, it's definitely with customers, vendors. And so it's a great lesson to share. Do you have um, do you have any specifics you'd like to share with us about that?
You know what? I have a great story, and it's one of my mentors coming up. A gentleman named Anthony Corona. If you're out there, appreciate you, brother. So I was coming in. This gentleman had fought tooth and nail to get me the pretty aggressive ask I had to come over from my BM to SunGuard Availability Services, and this guy genuinely went to battle. My ask was unreasonable because I put up unreasonable numbers, so I expect to be paid unreasonably. But I get there, and the weekend before, I got some unbelievably bad, life changing news the day before I was supposed to start, and I didn't have the wherewithal to function. Okay, like completely, without going into the details, just emotionally, genuinely distraught, and I didn't have the edification I have now, and my Christian maturity to know how to lean on grace. Um, and I was just not able. Okay. Not that I wasn't willing. I couldn't do it. And I came in um, with no shame in my game at the point of tears, trying not to cry as a grown man. And I told him, I said, listen, I know you went nuts getting me here. Um, but this is what's going on. And I don't have the sauce right now. I don't have it in me right this second. And he said, you know what, Arturo? I know sooner or later you'll be back to yourself, and I'm happy to wait. What do you need, and how can I help you? Holy cannoli. And you know what? That extra belief in me and genuine intention for my well being, that concern for me first, I have to tell you something. It was a real game changer for me in a time where I'd never experienced a positive leader in my entire existence in business. And I will tell you, he needed something from me on a Sunday. you know, Mr. Del Rio answered the phone. We're missing our
Yeah.
numbers a little bit. Don't worry, I'll go find us a couple 100,000 in MRR. Give me 60 days. And it was great because we got to celebrate together. Actually, we had the record sales, record deals, and everybody went to President's Club, and we were number one in that rather large organization. We got our little, those little fake wrestling belts. But you know what? It was my pleasure and joy to work that hard and put in extra work that I would have never put in otherwise, I think, for your standard person. And I'm very thankful to this day. And I guess that's my best example of somebody taking that opportunity to care about others. And I think it also paid off for him as well.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I also want to pause for one moment because, not to undercut what the point you were trying to make with this leader and how they behaved. But what's beautiful about this example is it started with you, though. It started with you, being able to admit and being able to be vulnerable, despite it sounds like not maybe having leaders that you knew who would respond in a positive or supportive way. And so I wondered, if you would have an example to share about that. But I think that's really important for all of us because I know, at least for me, I can fall into this trap too, but definitely can see it in organizations and people that we talk to that we're always hoping that the other person will be big and respond with kindness and empathy. And that always works better when both sides are able to be honest and vulnerable. So you should give yourself a little bit of credit for that because it is so important. That's how those conversations take place. Is for both sides being willing to do some of that. At least you hope. But he would have been able to respond with in such a big way had he not known, and had you not been willing to share.
No, that's true. Listen, thankfully, my mom, and my dad loved me a lot, so I always knew I had backup. And then, truth is, my identity is in Christ, not in other people's feelings about me. I know where I'm going. So to me, I got to be honest. And I think having, pride really is terrible. And if you're unwilling to admit anything, that stems from a lack of, uh, self awareness and self confidence, not from, anybody who can't be wrong, in my opinion, probably can't be right. You know, um, but I have a couple. I'll share one of the other sides of those stories just because I thought that was fun. So I was traveling abroad doing a release of a product. In a rather not good area, without naming countries or whatever. I was in a genuinely in a third world area with gangbangers and stuff. And anyway, somebody spotted me, and it looked like there might be, potential kidnappers trying to track me or something. So I call, the boss and tell him, "Hey, I'm out." He says, "Well, you only have a week left. It's not that big of a deal." So like I said, I had not had an experience previously with a leader who was genuinely concerned about others' well-being. So it was, I'll be honest, I
Right.
didn't expect that from Anthony. I didn't expect it from that gentleman. I thought I was just being honest. My job is to be honest with
Yeah.
people, and if I get the boot because I can't produce, then you know what? But what I didn't want to do is make him look bad after fighting and going nuts to get me on board and then me drop the ball. I felt that the minimum, appropriate response was to just be candid and honest about where I was at that moment. And listen, had it cost me my job, frankly, I would have slept fine that night because I was doing the right thing in my opinion by being honest and not setting him up potentially for failure. So, I'm very fortunate about that though. Uh, I'll send this to you, Anthony. I love you, brother.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an illustration of the importance of having alignment with people you're doing business with, right? That's the kind of when you have that kind of alignment, you can there's a grace that comes from that, right? Um, and over the years, it's something I've certainly seen. Sometimes you jump into a deal or a relationship because it seems financially intelligent, and then whether it's a week later, a year later, or 3 or 4 years later, if you're not in alignment, whether it's on faith or values, you end up in conflict.
Been bit by that snake.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh man, yeah. I think every entrepreneur who's owned businesses, if you haven't had one good lawsuit or somebody steal a lot from you, I don't think you really are an entrepreneur. I think that's nobody tells you that in those books.
yeah,
You ever read all those books and they're like, "Hey, did you do this?" No one ever says that it's going to wind up with litigation and somebody's going to steal this, and then you're going to crack a deal that goes well, and they're going to swipe the money. Somebody has. You know what, Kurt? You need to write that book. Tell people the truth about how this works.
yeah,
Everybody,
yeah. Well,
It's funny because we've had uh, some experiences of that nature, and I remember having a conversation about that very thing that was really shocking. Was absolutely shocking to me, and I did not want to hear it at the time. But it was oddly reassuring to know, hey, this happens a lot, and it just means you've done enough business for enough time at a high enough volume, at a large enough scale that you're actually arguing over things that matter. Now I realize people go to court and do silly things for issues that, probably don't matter that much, but it was reassuring. It was like, I didn't want to hear it at the time, but it
yeah,
made me feel a little bit better.
no one ever wants to hear it at the time.
yeah. Well,
That's too funny.
No, no.
Yeah, well, and I guess maybe some of us end up telling our journeys and our stories, and our journey is never a straight line. From the outside in, you always think, well, wow, look at how this person really, it's like they started this thing on one day and just up, 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 and it's really not. It never works out that way, even though maybe from the outside it looks like that. But those moments when I've had some of that conflict or some of that, I've learned the most, and when I've been in conflict with others, I can now look back and say, yeah, maybe we weren't in alignment and there's some fault on the other party's side, but I can also look back now and say, man, I wasn't behaving really well either. And there are some things that, 10 years later, you wish you could take back. I wish I would have been more gracious, uh, but to your point, those things happen. Um, I know one of the things we've talked about that you're particularly good at is creating sales teams. And I thought we need to definitely talk about this because when you talk to any business owner, any entrepreneur, and you say, what's your problem? Whether it's their biggest problem or not, it's sales, it's revenue. I need more revenue. I need, my salespeople don't produce, or I've got one producer and three people that don't. Getting that right, I think, is perhaps one of the most challenging things as a business owner. So, if you're good at creating elite sales team, let's put a tag right here at this point in the podcast. We're going to highlight it. The answer is here with Arturo. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned about
Yeah,
that.
no pressure.
Yeah.
No, no, no. I mean, listen, I'm helping quite a few people now. In fact, I actually started my consultancy because I was getting so many requests and just don't worry, I'll give you a hand. Well, give you a hand turn into 25, 30 hours a week all of a sudden. So I did spin back up Lakeside Consulting to help people with this, but you know, it comes down to really three things. Number one, compensation dictates behavior, right? So if you don't understand how to create a comp plan that produces winners, you miss right there. Most people create comp plans that only reward individual performance. How do you create a functional team if you're only rewarded by your own efforts personally, right? Well, if you play the Super Bowl and you're only going to comp the quarterback if he wins, then the quarterback's focused on a quarterback, not producing a better team. So, without giving away all the juice here, I'll give you the golden nugget for a compensation plan now, and we will take a step back on hiring the right people. But compensation plan, if you create a comp plan that rewards the focus on not just personal success, but on helping bring up the people behind them and rewarding them economically for that interest in creating success. And think about it, let's think about it in threes, just to make it simple. Arturo comes in and is an absolute monster. Okay. Well, now I'm going to get Arturo to help Bob. Okay. And Bob's compensation, or excuse me, Arturo's compensation, now part of it hinges on Bob's not just short term, but long term success. And now he's running team lead, and Bob, now we bring on Sarah. Well, now Bob is going to be compensated on Sarah, but there is going to be a component of compensation for Arturo to continue to grow both of these people. There's going to be a point in time where Bob is either going to work his way out or work his way up. And now Bob is going to be the next person to manage that. Now, this sounds funky. Some people hate it. They don't want to talk about it because they don't really have a reason. Usually it's because, well, we've always done it this way. I'm like, well, if you want to keep your current results, keep it going, brother. You want to get a result, you want to create a functional team with this is the key thing, not only producing team, but long-term retention of killers. And I don't mean this in a bad way. If you're a killer sales rep, you're an elite performer, myself having been one of these folks, or I guess continuing to be one, I can leave tomorrow, get a job for 20 to 40% more, and I can leave again in 6 months because my numbers are bananas. Anyone will hire me. Now, if I have long term interest because of the economic compensation and it's structured in a way where not only am I achieving a fat wallet, but I'm also focused on the development and learning and helping others, it becomes an emotional connection that allows for long-term further growth. And this does not breed competition. This is where 10 of us sit down and we look at a problem and listen, you might be great, but you ain't better than 10 of us. So that's the first thing people miss. And then I will say, when you're hiring people, listen to what they're telling you. If they're asking only about salary and not about commissions, don't hire them. In fact, I could tell you like this: I tried to negotiate down my salaries for increased commissions. That's You want a killer? Ask them, hey, would you prefer higher commissions or higher salary? That answer determines whether they move forward in the process. Stupid? You want to keep doing what you're doing, do it. I suggest you give it a try. Killers want commission. And then from an actual sales cycle management process, I'll tell you where we missed it and where everybody misses. It's the inability to understand one, identifying customer current state versus outcomes. People tell you about features, they tell you about their process, they tell you about, listen to me, your grandmother doesn't care about that stuff. Okay. Your grandma does not care about your products. So why would I? You understand? What we care about is the current state versus the desired outcome. And if you can identify and quantify that, and then here's the next step, and this is where everybody drops the ball. You have to identify. I don't know if you've heard the term tie down questions.
Yes.
A tie down question, well, this is where everybody misses it. So, well, let me ask you, um, Mrs. Prospect, what's making you look for a change now? See, people think they lose to a competitor. That's a lie. 70% of people don't change anything. So your real competitor is status quo. So you haven't even identified and convinced them they need to change, and you think you're selling against Bob across the street. Brother, you are losing to status quo. So the first thing we need to identify is why. And if they don't really need to make a change, then tell them that. And they'll appreciate it. And they'll tell their friends about the one sales guy who told them the truth, which, by the way, has gotten us a lot of deals. And then the second part is, well, what's stopping you from achieving this on your own? Now we know why you got to change. Now we know why you can't do it. So there's a little more to this, obviously, layering in intelligent understanding of return of investment. And people think about that only as cash. Sometimes that save time. Sometimes there's soft things like opportunity loss. So identifying ways to quantify that and position that without giving someone what people refer to as discovery fatigue. When like you're in one of those sales process and there's like 7,000 questions, like, you know, that gets old too. So there's a balance, but if you can identify those items quickly, you will position yourself for a win. And then when you follow up, this is where everybody drops the ball because the art is in the follow up. This is how you get to a follow up. The follow up, what everybody drops the ball on, is they don't send specific proposed next steps with action items based on the role and responsibility. Susie said she would send me those reports by this day for analysis, and that's who's responsible, and this is when it's due. And that project we just discussed, when you wanted, assuming we're able to meet your need, you wanted to implement by September 15th, correct? And then right on top of that in the email, you got to ask them, please confirm or adjust for accuracy. If they don't respond, call them and email them. Because if it's important enough to them, they will actually respond and say, you know what? We did agree to that. That is what we said. Or if it's wrong, hey, I did not say that. And this is what I did say. Great. Because I really do want to hear you. But I also want to create essentially a project management track to keep you on track for your desired outcome that we agreed that you wanted to achieve. So anyway, these are minor things. Actually, they're probably not minor. They're almost annoyingly simple, but for some reason we get lost in the weeds. So those are those would be my key little golden nuggets. If you can implement those minor changes, your conversions will skyrocket.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
very important to distinguish between simple and easy. So you're right. A lot of times the things that make the biggest, like make a massive shift in your business or in your life, they're simple, not always easy. So there's a distinction there.
Yeah, I'm taking
I know
notes.
Kurt
Look,
was writing down.
I might be interviewing here, but I'm taking notes. Uh,
Hey, we
Uh,
we want to get this advice too, right?
we'll timestamp the beginning and the end of this part because that was some great advice for
Listen,
businesses.
I hope people find it valuable, it really isn't fluff. That those are
Yeah.
some
Yeah,
Well,
legit
and it's
golden
hard,
nuggets.
Mhm. Businesses are worried about cash flow. They're worried about structuring it right. And, you probably won't get it right the first time you put these comp plans together. We've been doing this long enough and had a big enough sales team where we have changed ours a number of times and you adjust based on the market and what you're selling and all those things. But I just to underscore, not that anybody needs it, but I think your advice about competing for team success, there's a number of ways you could skin that cat, but I do think that's so important to incentivize on the entire team and what that looks like. It does foster, some incentives to help a coworker out. It helps you guys succeed together. So I would just second what you said.
yes. Well, now that Arturo solved all our sales and revenue problems, uh, let's talk a little bit more about ProLife Payments. What are you most excited about at ProLife Payments? What are some cool stuff you guys are doing? I know you mentioned the cool thing with the QuickBooks fee savings, but get into some of that a little bit more. What's really
Sure,
cool and exciting going there?
man. We have some cool stuff, man. We really do. We have some cool stuff. Our regular so what the concept is called compliance surcharging, right? Or dual discount. And that's the idea simply in order to get somebody to cover their own credit card fee, you have to offer another mechanism of payment. You've probably seen this at a restaurant or when you go get gas and it says cash price, credit price, right? That's all that is. But you have to do that mechanism. The problem is overwhelmingly, you would think providers like QuickBooks would just do that for you, but they want the fees. You know what I'm saying? So we found a way to make it simple and easy for for-profit companies, whether you just need regular old processing or whether you want an account receivable or cash flow improvement tool, standalone or with QuickBooks Online. You know, we're trying to create an experience where you don't have to change a lot of what you're doing. Your payment processor should be an afterthought. You know what I mean? Now, when there's a problem, though, and this is probably the coolest thing about our solutions, we answer the phone. I cannot. You remember back in the day, you remember like service after the sale? Remember that? Well, we do that. Back when we cared about our customers and would wanted to talk to you, where we actually want to hear from you. Well, that's what we do. And customers, big or small, we even do our best to get either a quarterly or 6 month face-to-face review with from our smallest to our biggest customers. You know why? Because we care about your business. We're not looking to have a burn and churn company, right? We're not reporting to a board of investors where I'm focused on getting 50 in while I know I'm going to lose 10 at the bottom, but I don't care about you. No, we want the 50, but we'd like to keep the 10 too. And every dollar that comes through our house, man, we're giving away 15% of the gross receivables, not profit, gross receivables to help moms and save babies. So if I can get you a better solution, whether it's payment processing or it's this, cash flow improvement or a QuickBooks integration or the smart CRM for nonprofits looking to grow, who's mad about that? I'm going to match or beat your pricing and give away 15%. And you have a customer, or excuse me, a partner who's as invested in your success as you are. The better you do, the better we do. We actually will write, this is something nobody does, Kurt. So for our nonprofits, we will do a full analysis of their go to market efforts. We write them long term drip nurturing campaigns, go to market campaigns. We have built in identity resolution. Most for profit companies don't have identity resolution. This thing will check the database, see if they're a donor, and in real time, hit them with a campaign. This thing drop, by the way, I use this. I use the for-profit version for myself. So as a sales rep talking about sales stuff, my team, guess who my team calls? If you haven't opened up an email 3 times in less than 24 hours, no one calls you. If you haven't exhibited action in real time, we're not interacting with you. This technology can do that grunt work. So our technology, we include integrations for smart LinkedIn tech that'll grow leads. It'll include data. It'll then drop a workflow. It'll send you a one-to-one video, send you an email a few hours later, and then drop you a voicemail from me. So one of my team members is doing with five of others. Well, imagine that for your four or your nonprofit. Anyway, I'm fired up. I'm always fired up. That's just kind of my personality.
It's so powerful. Not only the technical help, but again, just your passion on customer service. It is such a lost art, and you can stand out alone just by mastering that. Because people are just craving that. These as more and more companies we turn to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's more conglomerates, and small businesses struggle. You really lose that personal touch, even on the small business side. And so I think that intentional decision that you guys are doing is incredibly powerful. And that's in addition to what sounds like amazing technology.
Yeah. Well, and you also have a really cool baby saving calculator on the website. But people can figure out by switching to ProLife Payments how many babies they can save.
We thought that was nifty. We did. Yeah, we're talking about it one day, and we're like, what if we could give people? You already hear I'm an ROI kind of guy, right? So, I'm like, we're talking about
Yeah.
it. Like, what if you could tell people their baby ROI? You know what I mean? Like, what a cool concept. We're going to save you money, and you can go see how many babies you save per year. We thought it was cool. So, if you check us out on the website, and please listen, whether you come through our buddies over here at Liberty Spenders or not, please make sure you mention that you heard about us from them. It's really critical that we treat our partnerships with care and love. As you probably picked up, we're really focused on other people's outcomes. But it's prolifepayments.com/life/Liberty Spenders. Again, because it's a long one, prolifepayments.com/life/Liberty Spenders. But anyway, you can check out the baby savings calculator and some of our cool stuff there, and set up a call. We will talk to you.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we now go into our lightning round. Da, da, da. But we do I'd like to do a little quick, Kristen and I do a little quick Q&A section on a couple of topics. So one of the things we like to ask is, what would you say is a legacy you'd like to leave behind from your various business endeavors?
I really hope that my work in this world will help further the work of the ministry, which is really two things. Getting people the gospel and edifying, the saints, which is really the core works that we're supposed to do in the church. So that's all I would, and I don't care if I'm connected to it or if I get the pat on the back. It's unimportant to me. I already believe in the dream with Jesus. You know what I mean? But if I
Yeah.
can make any impact on those two things, I will be very thankful for the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Well, 90 seconds now on any topic. It just can't be pro-life payments, nothing we've talked about already. Maybe it's a hobby, cool trip you took. 90 seconds on something.
All right, so I'm a super big hick. Nobody gets that for me with my product glasses. I love fishing. I have a fishing problem. So random, but if you
Uh-huh.
haven't been to Panama and done some fishing in Lake Gatun, get it together. Step
Uh-huh.
it up and enjoy your life. Go there. There are absolute monsters. You can catch like a 10-pound peacock bass, a 200-pound tarpon, and a 40-pound jack crevalle in the same lake in the same day, and quite literally a 20, 30-pound snook. I am not getting commission for this.
Wow.
Go to Panama and go fishing. And check out my brother,
Yeah.
I have a good friend there to go talk to. Sorry.
It's so funny because I hear the words that you're saying. I don't appreciate them, but I know you met our producer Cody, who is a massive fisherman and outdoorsman. So I'm gonna have to make sure to tell him about this. He will be thrilled.
Let him
Yeah.
know. Let him know.
Well, and there's the guys in my church small group are like fishing aficionados. I don't know if that's the right word.
Probably
And
not.
and they go fishing regularly without me, which I'm perfectly okay with. Uh, and but that's really cool. And now a chance, 60-second commercial for ProLife Payments. Uh, Rip us a good quick commercial.
Well, listen, if you want to work with a partner who's genuinely invested in your business as much as you are in your success, come check us out. We do payments. We will improve your cash flow, eliminate credit card fees, and if you're a nonprofit, not just help manage, but we'll help grow your donor base, and we'll do it with you side by side. We'll match or beat your rates, and you know what? We're going to give away 15% to help mothers and save babies. You want a better partner? Come check us out.
I love it. Come take my money. Well done.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Arturo. To get in touch with Arturo, you can find, or ProLife Payments, you can find them at www.prolifepayments.com. Are you on Twitter or some other place, Arturo, if people wanted to reach out to you?
I'm not the media guy, but I'll tell you what, if you'll check us out again at prolifepayments.com/life/Liberty Spenders, or, check me out on LinkedIn. I'm Arturo Del Rio Jr. Be happy to chat with you, but no matter where you come from, please tell us where you heard from us. We'd really appreciate it.
So thanks again for those of you listening. Thanks for tuning in. We invite you to join us, the Liberty Partnership community at libertyspenders.com. And there you can learn more about how you can engage with this loyal and lucrative audience. And there's even a tool there to help you know what the next steps to take. So again, check us out, libertyspenders.com. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, see ya.